Dennis can't unmute his mic. Can you unmute it, Angelique?
Okay, so we are now streaming live, and I'll just check and see what's happening with the warden's microphone.
I can go ahead and start the meeting if he's not able to speak. Jeanette, can I suggest we go ahead and start with myself in the chair, seeing as though there wasn't much for the warden to cover at the...
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. With your permission, I'll call the meeting to order. No closed session. Approval of the addendum.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Higgs. Resolved that the addendum for the January 19th, 2022 meeting of the Council of the County of Frontenac be approved.
All in favor? It's carried. Adoption of the minutes from December 15th.
Deputy Warden Higgins, if you could just have Council confirm once again any disclosures of pecuniary interest for the public to see.
Dennis, did you want to take over? I see you're unmuted.
Hey, do we have any pecuniary interest to declare today and the nature thereof? Having seen none, we'll move on to the adoption of the minutes of December 15th.
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Deputy Warden Higgins. Resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting held December 15th, 2021 be adopted.
Any questions? All in favor? Carried. And we're going to move into the committee of the whole. Could you read that one, Jeanette, please?
Moved by Councillor Vanderwall, seconded by Councillor Martin, that council adjourn and meet as committee of the whole council with the deputy warden in the chair.
All in favor? Carried. You've got the mic, Ron.
Thank you, Warden. Our first up for the committee of the whole is a briefing by the CAO, Mr. Kelly Pender. If we can share the slides, we'll let Kelly provide his report.
Thank you, Deputy Warden, and Angelique will put the slides up. Just before we begin, and I was going to do it at the end when we had our first go at this, but just a bit of an update in terms of where we stand with Fairmount and COVID. We continue to have minor issues with both staffing and occasionally with residents. So we are currently in a lockdown situation. I've been providing council with regular updates from Fairmount, and our thoughts are with the staff, residents, and the family at Fairmount as we work through that. Luckily, with vaccination policies and everything else, we've been in a relatively good position in terms of outcomes with COVID, but it is still concerning for all, and certainly residents and family that are being affected by it. So our thoughts are with them, and hopefully over the next week or so, we'll be back down to being wide open and more normal circumstances. So with that, Angelique, do you have the presentation?
While we're waiting for that, thanks for the updates to council on this. Very much appreciated.
There we go. Guys, I hope we're not inundating your inboxes. Feel free to read as much or as little as you like. Just know that we're thinking about you and trying to keep you in the loop. So thank you, Angelique. A number of different meetings over the last few weeks, beginning with the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus meeting on January the 5th and 6th, which is the inaugural annual general meeting. Debbie Robinson, Warden of Renfrew County, was reelected as the chair, and we had a meeting with about 12 MPs and MPPs from Eastern Ontario, hearing their priorities for the coming year. The caucus established their priorities for 2022 and for Roma. And we'll get to that in a moment. We also had the Eastern Ontario Leadership Council meeting on the 12th, which I was unable to attend, but we have a bit of an update on that. Next slide, please. So at the Wardens Caucus, beginning preparations for the Rural Ontario Municipal Association conference, which begins next Sunday and extends through Tuesday. The Wardens Caucus does have a number of delegations with multi-ministers, individual ministers, and with members of the opposition parties for Ontario. So Warden Doyle and I will be busy for a few days going to and from meetings. We also have a joint meeting with that was coordinated by Lennox and Addington Council, where Warden Doyle and Warden Brzee from Lennox and Addington will be meeting with the Minister of Health regarding Ontario health teams. And Warden Doyle and Warden Brzee attended their first Frontenac, Lennox and Addington OHT meeting last Thursday and participated in the discussion. And we'll be bringing back periodic reports as that rolls out. The Eastern Ontario Leadership Caucus Council met on January the 12th. Deputy Warden Higgins is the chair of the ULC for this year, and looking to move to a more building upon the incorporation process that we went through in 2021, looking for a municipal partner. So we'll be issuing an expression of interest to the members of the Eastern Ontario Leadership Council, looking for a municipal partner. So for the Eastern Ontario Regional Network, for example, they partner with the County of Peterborough, who provides their banking and accounting opportunities. And for the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, it's the County of Hastings. So there's an opportunity for the County of Frontenac to potentially participate in that. So we'll keep council updated. A number of projects ongoing with the Leadership Council, including another intake for the Regional Transportation Initiative, which currently has projects up and running in the Prescott, Johnstown, Brockville area, one in Renfrew County and the other in Northumberland. And they're looking for a couple of more projects, and it's primarily targeted at getting people to and from work. So, if you know of any groups that are interested in that, that will be open, and either myself, Chair Higgins, or our project coordinator, Kathy Wood, can help with that. Next slide, please, Angelique. Next slide, please. So one call to action, and there is a motion on today's agenda with respect to joint and several liability. And this has been an issue. There's a number of members of the Wardens Caucus who have been on the caucus for over a decade. And this has been an issue at both AMO, the Wardens Caucus, and Roma. Essentially what it means is that even if a municipality is only 1% responsible for an accident, that they may be held 100% liable for all of the costs. Premier Ford, when he was first elected at his first AMO conference, pledged to address this, and AMO has asked us to continue. One issue that I didn't mention under the Wardens Caucus that I should have is the priorities for 2022 for the Roma conference, which is affordable housing, continuing monitoring of the rollout of broadband and cellular coverage for Eastern Ontario, and long-term care. The long-term care project was received by the Wardens Caucus and will be presented to the ministers next week, and will be presented to this council at our February meeting. On the housing front, the Wardens Caucus has taken the initiative, along with Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, to do a deep dive into the statistics required in order to present a valid case to funding agencies, namely CMHC and the province, on building affordable and attainable housing in our communities. Previously, the applications relied upon census data from Canada, Statistics Canada, and that wasn't granular enough to paint an appropriate picture of what's actually happening in rural Ontario. And you can think of it this way, that the Frontenac census district includes the city of Kingston, which obviously skews the data, which makes it harder to look at the data, say in North Frontenac. So that first grant was received and the pilot project was approved by CMHC, and now they have funded the Wardens Caucus along with the Rural Ontario Institute, the University of Guelph, to move on to the next phase, which is to begin populating it. So we'll be using not just Stats Canada data, but also building data and planning data from each of the municipalities in Eastern Ontario. And this will be a pilot project that will allow, say, the Council in North Frontenac to get accurate information on housing conditions. And that information can be used to make grant submissions and receive funding for housing projects in your community. So we look forward to that. That has been led by Brenda Orchard from Lennox and Addington County, who's the CAO, and Marcia Wallace, who is the CAO of Prince Edward County. Next slide, please. So at the end of the day yesterday, we received the final drawings for the site plan control application that'll be submitted to the city of Kingston. Sonia Bolton from our office will be making that submission and coordinating with Colburn and Kemble. The final drawings look very much like what we reviewed a year ago, almost a year ago to the day. And we're going to hopefully, go to tender the first week in February. So shortly thereafter, we'll need a meeting of either directly to the building committee or directly to county council to look at the final prices and the timelines and how that rolls out. So all of that is subject to the final approvals of county council and of course our construction partner, CRCA. Next slide, please. Our social media presence continues to show increases throughout all of our channels. The audience watches of county council was about 825 hours of video and over 6,800 users in 2021. So if nothing good came of the pandemic other than more people are watching local politics, then I think that's probably a good thing. And it was nice to see a picture of Councillor McDonald praying on that slide, which was much appreciated. Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Next slide, please. So around Frontenac, one of the sad things, if you know our paramedic supervisor, Mike Van Hardingsveld, who's a large part of our community, we managed to raise enough money that Mike shaved off his mustache and contributed almost $2,000 to the Movember movement. Apparently that was the first time Mike's wife had seen him without a mustache. And he has advised that he's getting about 2.1% better gas mileage without his mustache, so he might keep it off. Also, mass vaccination clinics, and a big shout out to our paramedics who have been busy with vaccination and community paramedicine programs throughout the area. And thank you to LaSalle secondary students who've made a donation to Fairmount residents, which is very much appreciated. It's good to see the community come and support our vulnerable population at Fairmount, and I'm sure that the residents and families are very appreciative. We had some difficulties with the Howe Island ferry, mechanical issues. Just a reminder, the Howe Island County Ferry is owned by the Ministry of Transportation, but operated by the county. So we had some issues, and our partners at MTO and Transport Canada, who are the regulators of ferries, we finally got that fixed up. But it was one of the areas of our social media that attracted a lot of attention, and we appreciate everybody's support as the ferry went through its issues. And a big thank you to Rob and Dakota and all of the Frontenac Islands Township staff who picked up the slack with the township ferry. And we know it's an inconvenience to everybody when the ferry is out, but appreciate everybody's efforts during that time. Next slide, please. So planning department updates, South Frontenac new official plan. County staff have participated in a number of online workshops, or in particular one on January the 12th, the township staff to discuss the next steps for the OP. And I know that Claire and her staff and all the staff at South Frontenac and their council have been busy on this project. And given the housing market and the pressures on rural development, we look forward to that project as they work through it. And I'd be remiss at this point to not also give a shout out to Neil Carboni, who last day will be near the end of February, who has been instrumental in this project and also instrumental in helping us through a number of different issues throughout the county, sitting at our CAO table. So we wish Neil the best of luck with the city of Kingston, and I've assured him that we're here any way we can to help in this transition. And also for Louise, who will be interim CAO for the next while. And we all know Louise and appreciate what she brings to the table as well. The Charlotte Lake School site redevelopment project, the feasibility project is ongoing, and staff are completing the online engagement through engagefrontenac.ca, looking towards early to mid-February to have an open house looking at the site. It looks like the potential for that site is, without communal services would be 5 to 8 lots, or 5 to 8 units, could be as many as 50 units with communal servicing. So the consultant is working through the options, and certainly, bringing more density to that urban site will help businesses in the community, will help the school situation, and as well be an efficient use of land. So we look forward to that report, and thank you to Central Frontenac Council and staff and our planning staff for making that happen. We're in the process of conducting research on several administrative processes, including planning fees, delegated authority, as well as recent changes to the Planning Act. And, it wouldn't be a provincial election time without a number of changes, and we'll be bringing those reports to you over the next several months. And also the administrative or the procedural bylaw committee continues to work through the procedural bylaw, and we'll also be bringing recommendations. So thank you to that committee and to Jeanette for their leadership on that issue. Next slide, please. Planning applications. So our record number, 174 planning applications in 2021, which we thought that 2020 at 100 was a lot, but we managed to break through that. We don't see any chance that this trend isn't going to continue. The demand for rural housing and a rural lifestyle continues unabated. And speaking to Sonia and Joe, the number of inquiries throughout December and January, which is normally a fairly quiet period, they were still quite busy, and we expect a number of applications coming forward in the next month or so. And this, of course, keeps the committees of adjustments and councils at our member municipalities quite busy as well. So we appreciate everybody's help and support as we work our way through planning applications. Next slide, please. Economic development. The destination development project with the is back on track, and we're compiling input from community members along with the RTO, looking for feedback from council, staff, tourism organizations. Meetings on January the 21st and Tuesday the 25th. More information available, of course, on our Engage Frontenac. And the business survey will be launched later this month, again on Engage Frontenac. And any questions that you don't have answers to on Engage Frontenac, of course, can be addressed to either Richard or Debbie, who are leading us on that project. Next slide, please. The Verona Trailhead project, as you'll remember, we received grant funding for improvements to the Verona Trailhead to make it accessible and to provide for the necessary grading to that site that will allow for paving. So paving and accessibility will be completed in May. And thank you to Richard and the contractor that won that, which was Whip Crane. The project looks pretty good. I had a chance to drive up before the latest snow, and it looks quite nice. It will also ensure that we have proper drainage and flow off of that, and look forward to having the project complete in the spring. Also, the project at Hinchinbrook Station, improvements to parking were made to keep traffic off of Road 38 near White Lake Road. That's a popular access point for walkers and cyclists. So you can see from the picture, there's a small parking area there that will make things safer for trail users. Snowmobile season has begun, and we contributed to the snowpack with about a foot here in Kingston, and hopefully the snowmobiles will be out in force for the next few weeks and contributing to our economy. In 2021, the season began late, but we hope that we'll get a good 8 to 10 week run out of snowmobile season. Next slide, please. So in 2021, we completed 621 competitions through the HR department, and Barb and Lisa and Carolyn and Candace have been extremely busy, and of course that also puts pressure on Bonnie, our OC health nurse, who guides people through a number of the medical requirements required to work in long-term care, for example. And again, we used to think that mid 200s was a high number for competitions, but with 4 hours of care and difficulties hiring paramedics just because of increased demand, we continue to see pressures on our HR department. We did resolve 2 grievances at arbitration in 2021. Each one of those grievances require a lot of preparation time on behalf of Barb and Lisa and the managers and directors involved in those. And we have collective bargaining dates with OPSU 109, which is the ferry workers, starting January 24th, and with OPSU, which is our paramedics, beginning on February the 2nd. And council has reviewed the negotiating positions of the county, and we'll be bringing those forward to the unions starting shortly. Senior leadership team has completed an in-depth review of succession management, and Barb presented the overview a couple of weeks back. So we've implemented a number of programs to ensure that our succession management plan continues to be rolled out through the paramedic or through the pandemic. And thank you to Barb for her leadership on that. The HRIS project, which was approved by County Council as part of the budget that we received a large grant for, we're doing jointly with the United Counties of Leeds and Granville. And we're just going through the proponent presentations and the final selection process for that, and hopefully awarding sometime in the next couple of weeks. And thank you to the province for their grant funding, and Barb has been working closely with the staff at the United Counties of Leeds and Granville, who have led the procurement process. So thanks there as well. Next slide, please. Finally, just like to congratulate a long-serving member of our staff, Deb Crawford, who's been the executive assistant at Fairmount, and Deb wouldn't want me to give the exact number of years, but she did start when she was about 7 or 8. Deb has announced her retirement as of the end of January 2022, and has been an amazing contribution not only to the residents and families at Fairmount, but to the entire county. And we wish Deb all the best in her retirement, and thank her for her years of service. And I wish we were live and could present her something live, but we will be doing something closer to her retirement date. So Thank you, Deb, and all the best in your retirement. And with that, I believe that's the last slide, Angelique. So if there are any questions, Deputy Warden, I'm open to questions, and if not, back to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Kelly. Is there any questions for Kelly? Okay, I see none. Thanks very much, Kelly. You must have covered that very well. No unfinished business today. We first up, we have a recommended report from the Chief Administration Officer. I'll turn it over to Jeanette to read the recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Warden Higgins. So the first one on the floor is the support of the AMO submission to the Attorney General for our liability and insurance costs. That's moved by Councillor Rebel, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Whereas municipal governments provide essential services to the residents and businesses in their communities, and whereas the liability to provide those services is negatively impacted by exponentially rising insurance costs, and whereas one driver of rising insurance costs is the legal principle of joint and several liability, which assigns disproportionate liability to municipalities for an incident relative to their responsibility for it. And whereas the Government of Ontario has the authority and responsibility for the legal framework of joint and several liability, and whereas the Premier of Ontario committed to review the issue in 2018 with a view to helping municipal governments manage their risk and costs, and whereas excuse me, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, on behalf of municipal governments, has provided recommendations in this source document to align municipal liability with the proportionate responsibility for incidents and capping awards. Therefore, be it resolved that the Corporation of the County of Frontenac does hereby support AMO's recommendations, and further that the Corporation of the County of Frontenac does hereby call on the Attorney General of Ontario to work with municipal governments to put forward a plan of action to address joint and several liability before the end of the government's current term, so that municipalities can continue to offer high-quality services to their communities. And further, that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Honourable Doug Downey, Attorney General of Ontario, the Honourable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario President Jamie McGarvey, and the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus Chair.
Thank you, Jeanette. You've heard the recommendation. Is there any questions on the resolution? Seeing none, call for a vote. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Second, we have a consultant briefing from Wayne Robinson. Welcome, Wayne. Wayne, if you're there, can you unmute yourself and show the video? I'm not sure what's Wayne is showing on my screen, but I can't hear or see him. We did get a report from Wayne as part of the package. Does anybody have any comments or questions on that?
Yes, Ron.
Okay, Councillor McDonald. There you go, Wayne.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. I was just asking Council if they had any questions on your report. Before I entertain the questions, I got 3 of them. Did you want to provide a verbal update on your written report?
I only had a few words. First of all, I want to thank you very much for sort of having confidence in me doing this. But secondly, that this report is just sort of the start of the whole collaboration with the users. So anyways, I'd be happy to answer the questions. And I didn't have any great enlightening words to add. So.
Okay, so I have 3 council members. First, Councillor McDonald, then Councillor Martin, and then Warden Doyle. Go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. And reading over the report, I thought Wayne did a really good job, and especially with his association and including our neighbors around us who are actually providing some information to him that would be useful as we're going forward. One of the things that I look at in doing the report, and I think it's important and it should be considered in the future is that we should not introduce this program for some time, and that can be decided by your ongoing committee that's going to be working on this. But some of the things I think that have to be considered in entering into a fees program is that we have to consider that there are families who actually are using this trail, that if you're introducing a fee of, say, as was written in the report, $150, it would be very expensive for a family of 4 or 5 or 6 people to actually be able to use the trail. But the other thing that I think is very important is that this trail has been a wonderful asset during COVID, because people are actually able to use this trail both for walking and hiking and bicycling and all that sort of thing. And so I think until COVID is off the board, putting any kind of roadblocks to people actually using this trail at this time would probably be in the wrong direction. I don't think it would be well accepted. So my recommendation is that we move forward with it, but certainly don't introduce any fees for a year or two, or at least until after we're over the COVID hump. Those are my comments on it, Mr. Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Bill. Any response, Wayne?
Well, if we sort of just look practically at this, even if it was approved today, staff having to write the bylaws and putting them in place, this year is gone. And then I guess we would be pushed to even sort of thinking 2023. But when I was originally looking at it and sort of giving us that window of being able to put together some concepts, and also considering that the KMP trail is, not complete through the county yet. I have no difficulty that we have a year and a half's work on this thing to sort of put it together and get a working committee that involves all the users. And so when Bill spoke to me, and I have no objection that it would happen in late 2023 or started, on January 1st, 2024 sort of thing. That gives us enough time to do some stuff. There's not an urgency on this thing. This is really part of the long strategy. So.
Thank you, Wayne. And I just reiterate, this is just an information update from Wayne. We're not going to be implementing anything at this point in time. Councillor Merton? You're muted, Jerry.
Jerry.
Yeah, my concern is that the users of the trail from other counties who are traveling perhaps on a Renfrew County trail pass or a Lanark County, whatever, when they enter Frontenac County, are we expecting these people to purchase a Frontenac County trail permit? I know this is premature, but I've had this question asked of me. Are we going to have a system of different permits for different counties, even though the KMP trail does travel through Lanark, as an example, up to Calabogie and so on? Is there any, what are the thoughts there?
Can I answer that? No, what we're really looking at is that there are 3 organizations in place now: the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs, the Ontario Federation of ATVs, and the Eastern Trail Alliance. And we're really not talking about, or certainly my thought is not the county putting their own system in place, but rather us passing a bylaw that says you need to have a trail permit to run on the County of Frontenac trails. And so those 3 organizations will be collecting the fees. And so if you belong to the Ottawa Valley ATV Club or wherever it's going to be, we would be respecting any of those 3 organizations' passes. So we're going to have effectively a one-pass system, even though it's being sold by 3 different organizations.
Well, that's very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Warden Doyle?
Yes, thanks very much, Wayne, for all the hard work you did on this report. And I am in favor of the fees and permit system that, as you recommend. I did have one question on page 2 and 3. You list priority 1 and 3, but I don't see priority 2 there.
Oh, well, that could very well be it. This was put together in little pieces, Dennis. But anyhow, I'm not. You have to help me a little bit. So.
Well, the reason I bring it up, I just want to confirm that I did read the whole report.
Okay.
And the other thing is, in regard to the ATV uses on the trail. I didn't see any comment in the report on that, so I presume that council will look at that at a later date again, because I think we're allowing them to use it on a temporary basis.
Well, only in a portion of the trail, like the portion in effectively from Verona from Craig Road south.
Yeah.
But it's certainly in Central Frontenac, and I don't know that there's been restrictions on Central Frontenac down to where we hit Central, but certainly there are no restrictions in Central and North Frontenac. Hopefully I'm not over speaking my bounds here.
Thank you.
Sounds fair. Thank you, Wayne. And Warden, is there any other questions for Wayne? Okay, I don't see any. Wayne, I want to thank you again for all the work you're doing. You're amazing at collaborating and getting people to work together. So really appreciate it. Look forward to this going further. So thanks very much for your work to date.
It's been good fun. Thank you for having confidence in us.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Next, we have the Planning and Economic report. Yes, Planning Economic report from Wayne regarding the merits of requiring trail permits for motorized vehicles. Jeanette, do you want to read the resolution, please?
Absolutely. Moved by Councillor Higgs, seconded by Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac received the report from Mr. Wayne Robinson regarding the merits of requiring trail permits for motorized vehicles on the KMP Trail, and further that the County of Frontenac directs staff to prepare a comprehensive bylaw on the care and use of the KMP Trail, including the requirement for trail permits for all motorized vehicles, and further that staff be directed to continue to work with Mr. Robinson in negotiating with the Ontario Federation of ATVs, the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance, and the Ottawa Federation of the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs on the development of a joint usage agreement for the KMP Trail, and further that staff bring back a report and bylaw to Council for final consideration in Q2 2022.
Thank you, Jeanette. And I think this addresses a question I heard from Councillor Martin. Is there any other questions on that? Councillor Vanderwall?
I'm just wondering, it says Q22 to bring back a report. Is that too ambitious?
Wayne or Kelly or Joe, any comment on that?
It may very well be ambitious, Councillor Vanderwall, but I think at this point, Wayne has done all of the heavy lifting on this project. There are a number of pattern bylaws. And to Councillor McDonald's point, it may take us a couple of times to go through the bylaw to get the way we want and to select an implementation date and provide proper notice to the community. So I prefer we try and be a little bit ambitious here and strike while the iron is hot and select an implementation date that makes sense for council and of course for the community.
I'm fine with that then.
Thank you. Any other questions? Perfect. And again, thanks again, Wayne. There's no other questions. I'll call for vote. All in favor? It's carried. Thanks again, Wayne. Next, we have the Corporate Services Users and Fees Changes Bylaw. If Jeanette could read the recommendation, please.
Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Vanderwall. Resolved that the County Council received the Corporate Services 2022 User Fees and Charges Bylaw report, and further that Council pass a bylaw later in the meeting to impose user fees and charges for services and rescind Bylaw 2021-0001, being a bylaw to impose user fees and charges for services.
Thank you. Is there any questions? All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have Corporate Services Temporary Borrowing Bylaw.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Rebel. Resolved that Council of the County of Frontenac accept the Corporate Services 2022 Temporary Borrowing Bylaw report, and further that the clerk be directed to introduce a bylaw later in the meeting to authorize current borrowings from time to time during 2022.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. Next, we have the setting of the 2023 county budget deliberations. Go ahead, Jeanette.
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Higgs. Resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the corporate services setting of the 2023 county budget deliberations and solicitation of public input report for information. And further, that the Council of the County of Frontenac confirm the following dates for the new council orientation and 2023 budget deliberations. October 1 to November 30th, 2022. It was the 2023 Frontenac County budget project open on the engagefrontenac.ca for public engagement. Tuesday, January 17th, 2023 will be the new council orientation, introduction to council and the County of Frontenac. Wednesday, January 18th, 2023, new council orientation, introduction to external agencies and public meeting for the solicitation of public input into the 2023 budget. This is, of course, part of the regular council meeting. Wednesday, February 8th, 2023 is the council presentation of the 2022 KPIs, the 2023 business plans and project proposals, detailed budget presentation. Thursday, February 9th, 2023 will be day 2 of the 2022 KPI 2023 business plan and project proposal detailed budget presentation. And Wednesday, February 15th, 2023 will be the council presentation on the detailed budget.
Thank you. Is there any questions from council? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Next, we have the Planning and Economic Development Extension and Approval of Draft Plan of Subdivisions. Go ahead, Jeanette.
Moved by Councillor Vanderwall, seconded by Councillor Martin. Resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the Planning and Economic Development Extension of Approval of Draft Plan of Subdivision 2292 Sands Road, Township of South Frontenac, County File 10T-2011-002. And further, that the Council of the County of Frontenac deny the request for extension for the draft approval of the plan of subdivision for 2022 Sands Road, Battersea.
Thank you. So you've heard the resolution, and we've also got a letter from the developer. Is there any questions from council? Go ahead, Councillor Vanderwall, and then Councillor Smith.
Well, it's just a technical, if you're listening live, Jeanette said 2022 or whatever, it's 2292 Sands Road. And if Joe has any comments, I'd like to hear some comments from other ones first. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith?
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that I wanted to hear from Joe as to the recommendations to not approve this subdivision.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Through you, as we noted in our staff report, this is the 6th request for extension of draft approval, which County Council originally granted in 2013. So that's 8 years ago. And some of the key background studies for this project, like hydrogeological assessment, terrain analysis, they're now more than 10 years old. And both myself and Ms. Dodds, who's the Director of Planning with South Frontenac, felt that any minor changes to this subdivision may not trigger any updates to those studies, which are really important for establishing the principle of development. Also, as you note in my staff report, when you considered extension of draft approval last year, most recently, there was a planning report from the firm Fotan Consulting, and it was clearly laid out that there was a builder that was going to be involved in the redevelopment of the property and start to move the conditions of approval forward. And nothing has happened in the last year. There's been no activity in terms of clearing any of those conditions. And as I also noted in the staff report, the only condition that's ever been met as part of that draft approval was the rezoning back in 2013, which is standard for South Frontenac. When they're endorsing a plan of subdivision, they're also requiring the rezoning of the property, but all the other conditions of approval have not been touched at all. So We also note in the report that since 2013, the planning environment in Frontenac is changed. We've got a new county official plan in 2016. We've got an updated provincial policy statement from May 2020, which supports communal service development, which we're trying to do. As council is well aware, we're getting very close to setting up a regional utility to promote communal services in Frontenac. We've got the pilot project happening in Charlotte Lake. And then, of course, South Frontenac, even through COVID, has been working on updating its official plan with the goal of having their council look at adopting a new plan this year. And one of the comments they've had from their citizens is they want their villages to be strengthened. And one of the ways of doing that is communal services. So within that policy context, we're recommending that the applicant and their agent have had ample opportunity to move this forward. It has not happened, so we're recommending denial. I'll answer any other questions, Deputy Warden. Thank you.
Thank you. In the letter from the developer, they stated that the delays were due to COVID, and then COVID affected the planning at South Frontenac and the county. I was wondering if Councillor Vanderwall and yourself would like to respond to that concern before I call for a vote.
I can first, through you, Deputy Warden, I'll just comment as noted in a report. Yes, COVID did affect us in terms of dealing with people face to face. But our planning department, as Mr. Pender noted in his presentation, broke a record last year with dealing with planning applications. We were fully engaged in planning. We worked with Central Frontenac getting their official plan approved last year. We've been working on the communal services. So COVID has not affected our ability to do the work in our department, and I'll defer to Councillor Vanderwall to speak to step.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderwall?
I would like to say that as what Joe was saying, how busy everybody has been, I'm not denying that. However, we have had some major subdivisions that have, I would say, enormous conditions, and with those developers, we have met those in the past year. So it's not like we're not getting things done. We are, and we have worked diligently with some other applicants to move other major subdivisions forward. So I guess the other comment I would like to make, I think we were pretty clear last year when we gave the extension and the rationale behind all the studies and all the things that were going on, that 1 year was appropriate. And I know that if someone had said to me, I will give you a year to complete it, I would have worked very diligently, at least trying to move that forward, and showed that I have been trying hard to get to that end result. If I couldn't get there, at least I have an argument that I was working the whole year at trying to get there, where there is some rationale to extend. That's my comments on it.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? It's carried. Information reports from Chief Administration Officer. They're just information reports. Is there any comments on those? Seeing none. Reports from advisory committees of County Council. We have a report from the Frontenac Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the report received from the Frontenac Accessibility Advisory Committee be received and adopted. And that, of course, is the 2021 Annual Accessibility Status Report, with the recommendation to forward that on to the township so that it is put on all of our websites.
Okay, so that's two recommendations within the report. Is there any comments or questions? All in favor? It's carried. Next is motion return to council.
Moved by Councillor Rebel, seconded by Councillor Smith, that council revert from committee of the whole council to council.
Thank you. All in favor? Back to you, Warden.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. The first is adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Moved by Deputy Warden Higgins, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the report of the Committee of the Whole Council be adopted and that the necessary actions or bylaws be enacted.
All in favor? Carried. The next is, we've got a couple notice of motion.
Moved by Deputy Warden Higgins, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the County Planning Department schedule a communal services public meeting in addition to public consultations to address any concerns by the community at large, and further that all township councils be invited to said meeting.
Any questions on that? Yes,
Just a comment.
Jerry first, and then you, Deputy Warden. Councillor Martin?
Trying to find my mute button. My question is, will pre-planned questions be required for this meeting? Like pre-written questions? I guess I'd be directed to Joe. He'll be part of the, probably directing the meeting, I would think, the open house.
Through you, Deputy Warden. That can happen, but I also think it should be an open meeting. If people are virtually attending and they put their hand up, we should be prepared to answer those questions as well.
Yeah. I guess I should say that this is a notice of motion, so we'll be discussing this in more detail at the next meeting.
Okay.
Sorry, Warden Doyle, if I might just interrupt, this is actually a motion on the floor that will be voted on today. Deputy Warden Higgins gave notice of motion at the last meeting that he would be bringing this forward today. So this meeting is on the floor for discussion and resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was a new one. Okay, I'm sorry. I think Deputy Warden Higgins, you had a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that since I wrote the report, I saw some communications from the planning department that they're planning on scheduling a public meeting anyway. Is that correct, Joe?
Joe, are you there?
Yeah, sorry about that. We haven't set the date for the public meeting. The other thing that council should be aware of in terms of setting the date is there has still not been a resolution passed by South Frontenac Council about moving forward, and I'm not sure when that is going to happen. Perhaps Councillor Vanderwall would know that, but it's this county council. I guess my question to the council would be, do you want to wait until you've heard from all 4 townships before we move ahead with this?
Yeah. Ron, do you have a comment on that? Has it been approved or on the agenda to approve at your local council? The other 3 townships have approved it.
Yeah, I'm not sure when it's coming back. Maybe you better ask Councilor Rebel. He seems to be the one that's been dragging something.
Okay, Councilor Rebel, do you have a comment?
Well, thank you, Warden. Not so much dragging things, but I have a number of significant questions which I've posed to our municipal staff before I would be prepared to move forward with approval of the business case. It seems to me there's a lot of unanswered questions that I'm looking for some resolution of. I don't know when it will come back to our council. I assume sometime perhaps in February it will come back for our council for consideration, and possibly
resolution during the month of February or early March.
Thank you. I guess my preference would be to wait till all 4 municipalities have approved it, but if it drags on much beyond February or March, I think the public meeting should be held. What do you think, Deputy Warden Higgins? Are you suggesting we do it sooner than later?
I'm suggesting, I guess for this resolution, I'm just saying if I would like a public meeting scheduled, we don't have to set the date yet. I just want to ensure that a public meeting is going to be held when the time is right. But I don't understand why South Frontenac is taking so long. It's been, what, 3 or 4 months now. All the other townships have passed it to move it forward, pending further discussions, public consultation, and a public meeting, and this coming back to council for final resolution. The only holdup is, in my mind, is why South Frontenac, if they either oppose an MSC or are in favor of an MSC. Anyway, that's a side point. I'll leave it with South Frontenac to resolve. So for this resolution, I would like to see that the council would approve a public meeting as well as public consultation when the time is right. Don't have to schedule it today.
Okay. Any more comments or questions before I call the vote? All in favor? Carried. Okay, the next one is on North Frontenac in regards to paramedicine services.
Moved by Deputy Warden Higgins, seconded by Councillor Revel, that the county investigate the possibility of implementing a community paramedicine program for North Frontenac seniors utilizing the Robertsville paramedics if possible.
Do we have any questions on that? Yes, Deputy Warden Higgins, you first, and then Bill.
Yep, thank you very much. As I was preparing the report for this, I was hoping to have this implemented, but in talking to Chief Chevalier, there's a lot of implications we need to address and get some advice. If this does pass, the intent is that Chief Chevalier and myself would meet with the Renfrew County, who have implemented community paramedicine, to understand how they implemented the benefits, the issues, things like that. In my mind, the paramedics are on a 12-hour shift up here. And whenever I drive by, I usually see the two cars up there and they're sitting in there unless they're out on a call. So I think it would be quite valuable to use these paramedics if we can swing a deal to help provide community paramedicine to our seniors and to help them stay at home versus to go to long-term care facilities. And this also falls in line with the province on trying to keep seniors at home versus long-term care. That's all I have to comment on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, I think some of my inquiries was actually covered by Ron when he was making his comments, but my concern was that if the community paramedics is that when we're actually performing these duties, who's taking care of the calls that might come in for service from the ambulance base itself? So I think if more information is coming forward, that can be cleared up in my mind in regard to how this would actually work. Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Yes, I think the investigation would highlight those things. And what happens when somebody's in there getting their blood pressure taken or whatever they'll be doing, and they get a call. That person, I guess, will just have to say, sorry, we got an emergency call. So maybe a bit awkward that way. And I understand the current process is that each person that uses this service has to be approved by the doctor. And I think there's quite a few in North Frontenac that get the service. So I think the service then is delivered at the person's home, which is probably a little better for the patient than coming to the paramedic center. And yes, I see Councillor Smith, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I was basically going to say what you've just said is that the community paramedicine program is available to people in the North now, and it's certainly available to people throughout the county. I've worked with some of those community Somebody's getting a call, but those people go into the homes now and provide excellent care. So I guess it's maybe educating the doctors that are referring the people in North Frontenac to the program. Maybe we need to take a look at better communication there. Maybe they don't understand that we have the program in Frontenac.
Okay, any more? I guess there's no harm of investigating further to come back. We're not really making any decision. Yes or no will provide it. Is that what the intent is, Deputy Warden Higgins? Is you and Gail will get together, come back at a future meeting and we'll have a further discussion?
That's exactly true. And Councillor Smith is right. The community paramedicine program is available. However, not all paramedics sign up to it. So we have to get buy-in from the paramedics in this area to do it. And that's according to Chief Chevalier. So that's one of the things that, one of the implications that we have to address as we investigate this further. And you're right, we'll bring back a full report to council once we investigate the implications, such as the questions I'm hearing today.
Okay, if there's no more, I'll call the vote. Any more comments or questions? Having seen none, all in favor? Carried. And don't have any notice of motion. No, I guess I should ask, any notice of motion for the next meeting? Having seen none, I'll move on to communications. We've got a lot of it. Any questions on those? Having seen none, we'll move along to other business. No other business listed. Public question period. Do we have any members of the public that have questions today? Do you see any there, Jeanette?
There are no comments on the YouTube live stream.
Okay. I guess we're down to the confirming bylaw.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Higgs. Resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce bylaws B through D that have been circulated to all members of County Council, and that bylaws B through D be read a first and second time.
Any comments, questions? All in favor? Carry.
Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Higgs. Resolved that bylaws A through D be read a third time, signed, sealed, and finally passed.
Any questions there? All in favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Vanderwall, that the meeting hereby adjourn at 10:49 a.m.
Thanks, everybody. Are we all in favor of that?
I'm inviting everyone up to Central Frontenac to shovel snow if they would like to do that.
Be right there, Bill.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.